Well, as many as 30 homes and buildings in northern New South Wales have been lost after two major bushfires swept through the area on Tuesday, with police investigating whether any of these fires were deliberately lit. Sadly, it's been confirmed that an elderly couple earlier missing in the fires have been found to have perished. While, as I've said, the origin of these fires remains under investigation, recent fires on the Queensland coast were the work of arsonists. And Senator Pauline Hanson says, as a response, the teenage arsonists should be placed on a register and forced to repay society out of their future wages. She joins me now live from Brisbane. Senator Hanson, thanks very much for your time. I know you've had a frantic day on the road, but it's really important that we talk about these issues. We expect a long, hot summer. And sadly, we see more and more cases of fires, not from lightning strikes, but started by young people in particular, by arsonists. What's your response?
It's a crying shame. I heard that two people have lost their lives in northern New South Wales, plus also you've got 21 homes that are lost there, other homes lost in Queensland. It's devastating. I don't know what society is coming to. These kids, you know, I just feel there's not proper punishment for these acts of crime against our society. If they're juveniles, they should automatically go into a juvenile detention centre. No slap on the wrist anymore. They should then face paying back society for the rest of their lives. Once they get a job, even out of their welfare, I don't care what it is, they have to pay it back like a HECS debt to the people. There has to be some sort of a responsibility from them for what they've done to society. I don't know all the answers, Peter. It's so hard. You know, I think our court system lets down. There is in place there for an offence, and I think it's up to 5 years for arson, but we never hear of these sentences being dished out. We don't hear of anyone being punished for it. Our court system, the people are fed up with the judges. They just give them a slap on the wrist. If we really want to live in a safe society, we've got to step up to the mark.
Look, I think that's very much true. It's come through in the protests, particularly in Brisbane. The number of times specific individuals have been arrested by police, brought before magistrates, and in most cases haven't even got fines. Magistrates say, well, because you're on the dole and you can't afford to pay, they choose to be on the dole. I mean, they choose not to work. Magistrates have let them off. There's been very little in the term of custodial sentences. I know Anastasia Palaszczuk says she'll do something about it, but these have been going on, these protests, been going on for 6 months or more in Brisbane. So what's got to happen there, do you think?
And look at the vegans as well, and slapped on the wrist. There's no decent fines. You've got sympathetic judges, just, you know, no conviction recorded. People are absolutely fed up with this. You know, disrupting people's lives. They had their say at the ballot box, and of course, the people voted the way they did in the May elections. Now, the fact is they have no compassion, care about anyone else. If you look the way they carry on in the streets, these people should have an automatic fine. OK, you can put it in legislation, a minimum of $1,000 or $2,000 fine, so the judges can't just say no fine and nothing recorded. Put it in legislation, so on-the-spot fine, as we do with anyone who's using a mobile phone. If you are then caught for 3 times, then there must be a jail term. You can't have them disrupting society. I spoke to a union member yesterday and he said, Pauline, under the laws, he said, if I disrupt a business for 5 minutes, and he said, and the union can be fined up to $242,000, or me as an individual, $42,000. Why is it that we have these strong fines against companies or groups like that in the cases of disrupting businesses, but we don't do the same with these protesters? I've got nothing against protesters. Do it in a park where you're not disrupting everyday Australians trying to go about their businesses, get to work, emergency services and all the rest of it. Come down hard on these people, but that comes down to the government of the day. Show some strong leadership, Anastasia. Do your job.
Do you reckon we've gone soft? You know, young people were supposedly meant to be adults at the age of 18, but you see some of these protesters, they're well and truly into their 20s, and we give them sort of get out of jail cards every time they front the courts.
They are. There's no fear anymore, and I blame our court system as well. I blame the judges that we put in place. I hear it day in, day out about the sentencing that they hand down. Peter, I've had this policy, and I believe that The judges are only responsible to the politicians. Once they're appointed, you can't get rid of the judges. Set up a panel of about 6 people so that the public, if they're not happy with the judge's decision, they can write to the panel and complain about the judge's decision. If you get a numerous amount complaining about a judge and the sentencing that is hands down, that is not up to public expectation, then he goes before the panel. He has to answer why he should keep his job. If not, get rid of them. It's not public expectation. We have to live in this society. We must expect decent penalties from those that commit crime against society. Otherwise, we're going to be locking ourselves behind bars for our own protection. We won't feel safe walking the seats. These ratbags and idiots can go out there and do whatever they want to. It's about time we woke up and took control of our streets and our homes.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make, because in the United States, attorneys general, these are the people basically act like Crown prosecutors in our justice system. They are politically elected. You know, they have to stand for an election and they have to demonstrate to their constituencies that they have got, brought down the crime rate, for example, that they are adhering to the law, that they are tough on crime, or whatever their mandate was when they were first elected. Of course, our judges and magistrates are appointed basically for life, and once they're in there, you're right, they tend to want to make friends with fellow judges on the bench, more so than the Australian public who expect them to do their job.
It is the case, and they're political appointees, and that's what it is. Whoever's the government of the day, they appoint their mates and they get in there, and that's why the people are fed up with it and their own political views. It comes back to the law as well. So it's what they have to look at what is law and should act on that. But case in point, okay, family law. It's supposed to be under the law. It's 50-50 custody. But it's at the discretion of the judge. So it comes down both to the government and the legislation laws they put into place and how the judges interpret that law. So, you know, we've got to start pulling it together. How do we want our society to be made up? How do we want to live? Do we want to live in peace and harmony? Or are we going to have these ratbags and idiots out there dictating to us because there's no fear, no repercussions put on them whatsoever because of weak leadership in our country?
All right, well, I'm going to flip to another issue, because I know you've been very vocal in support of dairy farmers and this issue of a milk price put on by the supermarkets, that we consumers think we're doing the right thing by buying the milk with an inflated, moderate price, 10 to 20 cents, hoping that that goes in full to farmers. Of course, we know now it doesn't. It's the profit take of the big supermarkets. And on Jones and Credlin on Tuesday night it was a harrowing interview with a farmer from up your way. Let's listen to what Scott Priberview had to say.
And what is the government's agenda? Like, seriously, you've got this fund somewhere and we're not going to see it till July next year? Like, there's guys around me who are hanging on by their bare scrimp of their teeth, and they're about 2 weeks away from sending all their cows to the abattoir, and as the guys that have put his place on the market the other day, all because the price of milk.
Pauline, a phenomenal response from viewers on the back of that interview from Tuesday night. I played it again last night to a National Party MP. And Keith Pitt's a good bloke. He's on the backbench, of course. He's not in the cabinet. But I got excuse after excuse after excuse of why nothing's going to happen to support these farmers. Now, you know, and I know, my sister's a dairy farmer. Once they leave the land, they won't go back. Young people, they'll protest, but they won't do hard work and get up at 3:30 in the morning and milk cows. So they'll leave the land, and we will have no other option other than to import our milk, either from New Zealand or places like China, where they have dairy herds of 20,000 per farm. When are we going to wake up?
That's right. When this was brought in about deregulation, and of course the dairy farmers left it up to the individual groups to act on their behalf about deregulation, I thought, they were misguided by it. They were too busy doing their work on the farms. They allowed it up to others to make the decisions for them, I believe, and I fought against deregulation at that time. I opposed it. It was about to, and when they deregulated, of course, they got a set gate price for their milk. And when deregulation came in, the companies that took it over, the processors, They then told them, get big or get out. So a lot of the dairy farmers, it's been in generations in the family, and they did the bit of dairy farming, they sold the milk. Well, their milk wasn't picked up and it wasn't worth their while, so they ended up closing down. In Queensland, we had 1,500 dairy farmers. At the moment, it's about 385 dairy farmers. We don't get the price of milk in Queensland. It's around about 36 or even 34 cents in the dollar, which is below the cost of what it is to actually produce that litre of milk. It's a bit more in New South Wales, and the 42% in Victoria, it's about 54 cents a litre for their milk. And they get better production the further south you get in Victoria. But the thing is that we need to look at re-regulating the dairy industry again. So farm gate price, that is what they get paid for by the processor, and it should be at least 10% above the cost of producing that milk, and should increase over a period of time with increased inflation. So Australians will pay that price. When we look at what Australians pay for a bottle of water, and it can be $2,
yep.
Okay? Australians will. If we are paying over $2 for a 500 mil of water, 600 mil of water, how stupid are we that we are not going to, we won't pay the same price for milk? Water is cheaper than milk. So if we don't wake up to ourselves, we are losing our farms. It's being bought up by the Chinese, because 25% of our land in the Northern Territory, of our agricultural land, I must say, in Northern Territory and Tasmania, is foreign owned. And another big thing, I spoke to a dairy farmer in southern New South Wales. He's paying about $1 million a year in water to grow the crops and water his cattle. And he's looking at, how can I keep going?
All right, well, you
the water is another big issue. Cost of electricity.
Senator, Parliament's back next week.
Too right it is.
You are a pivotal crossbencher. What are you going to say to the government? Are you going to be able to say to them, don't come and talk to me about tax legislation or anything else that you've got on your wish list? I've got a whole list of issues for myself.
You better believe it. Yes. You better believe it, Peter. I really am, because I said to my staff on the plane coming back from Rockhampton, I said, right, I want to put up a private member's bill about re-regulating the dairy industry again. And I said, if the government doesn't start listening to me and dealing with these other pathetic issues they're putting up a policy on the floor of Parliament, I'm not interested in that. Because if they need my vote or want my vote, forget about it. Because until we sort out the dairy industry in this country and look after the farmers that are desperately needing our help, and get back to our industry and re-regulate it again to keep them on the land instead of seeing foreign ownership, they're not going to get my support. I'm dead serious about this. I fought for the cane growers with their code of conduct, and I refused to vote on the floor of Parliament, and I got that code of conduct. Well, I'm going to do the same for the dairy farmers, because they need to wake up themselves. And I'll tell the Prime Minister now, if you're watching this, get your head out of the sand and start doing something for the farmers of this nation, because the dairy farmers have got their backs to the wall, and they need your support as Prime Minister of this country. Show the leadership, because that's why the people voted for you in May, and make sure you do the job for these people.
There you go. Couldn't be a clearer message, Senator Pauline Hanson. I will watch with interest next week. I know a lot of people who watch this show are supporting farmers. Will be absolutely behind you and in your corner. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Peter.